Hey guys, welcome back to Small Trees. The seasons have started changing, it's gotten cooler, the leaves are dropping, which means there's not a whole lot to do in your garden right now. However, there are a few things that you can do. It's mostly preparation work for next year. You can work on side projects like your watering. I am going to try to make an entire raised bed out of this area to my left, which is going to be a big project. One other thing that you can do is get an idea at your trees, kind of get a look at them compared to during the season when they're in full leaf. A lot of my trees have dropped almost all of their leaves, but all of them are going dormant. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to defoliate these trees, or at least this one. This is the Fusion project. We're going to go ahead and defoliate it. The leaves are falling anyway, and that way we can get a good look at it. And I know that some seedlings in here have probably died, and I need to go about getting replacements for them. Now, last year I started growing my own seedlings from seed, and I'm going to continue that this year, and I'm going to see if I have any that are big enough this year to go into this tree as a replacement, and if not, I'm going to make an order probably from Matt. So we're going to go through here, clean this up, and get our first good look. This is your first look, this is my first look. I did try to peek at it during the year, but there were black widow nests in here, and I really didn't want to stick my hand in there too much. So join me, we'll take a look, and hopefully we have some pretty nice fusion, and it looks pretty good for next year.
Here's a quick look at the tree before we start. It grew a fair amount, but not quite as much as I'd hoped. I'm going to go ahead and defoliate now so that we can see how much progress the tree really made this year. First, I'm just going to remove the leaf debris from the ground, and then I'll work my way up the tree, removing the leaves. It's important not to just grab a branch and strip the leaves from it. If you do this, you risk damaging buds that will become next year's leaves. If you're unfamiliar with this tree, this is a really exciting project that I started this spring. It's made of over 100 Trident maple seedlings that I attached to a wire frame with the hope that they'll grow and fuse together to create one very large tree with nice taper in a short period of time. There's a link in the description to the playlist that shows all of the work that went into this tree if you want to catch up. You can see that the soil on this side of the tree is very sandy. There was a storm that washed away a lot of the soil on this side, and I had to replace it quickly before work one morning. This is normal ground soil, which is far from ideal when growing a tree like this. It's probably more efficient to defoliate from the top down, but I was excited to see the base, and so I started from the bottom. However, there are immediately some bad signs. You can still see a lot of the green twist ties that I used to secure the seedlings to the base. If these seedlings had grown a lot this year, they would have started to grow over and then absorb these twist ties. The fact that they're still clearly visible means that these seedlings either didn't grow much or didn't survive. Here's a good example of the growth we're looking for. You can see small knobs on this seedling. It's already grown over the twist ties, and it should be firmly secured to the wire frame underneath. These knobs will become less noticeable as the tree continues to grow and fuse. These leaves have a beautiful range of fall color. The reds and oranges are especially nice.
Alright, let's start right here. First impressions. Some of the trees did start to fuse together. You can see down here the green twist ties are what I used to bind them together, because I thought that when they fused it would grow over that easily without leaving a huge scar. As you can see, here is a pretty good example. It doesn't look like it's going to be very noticeable, especially when the tree fuses all the way. There will be knobs, but this tree is going to be a little bit of a fantasy proportion tree anyway, so a few little knobs and things like that won't really matter. May add to the image. And second observation here, I'll show you around on this left side, but I had a fair amount of these not make it. A lot of them in a row right here, and I don't know why that is, but I'll have to replace a lot of them. You can see the ones that died, the bark had already started to decay, like this one. So they're actually pretty easy to distinguish, the ones that died versus the ones that didn't. So I don't know if I actually need to mark these. I was planning on going through with a Sharpie and, you know, marking them for next year, but they are pretty obvious. So, and what's always really interesting to me is the difference between two seedlings in a year. Some of these, like all of these here, are alive. This one, for example, you can see the size of it. It had a little shoot here, which is good, but that's what it grew in a year. And then you have some like this, and this is a single seedling, this is a single seedling, that are probably 7 or 8 times the size in terms of volume or diameter. So many that have died, like this, for example. You know, if you've got dead wood next to live wood, obviously the live wood is not going to fuse. So I guess the good news is that, if you're looking for good news, the ones that died are in a row, so replacing them all is going to be a little bit easier. But there are a lot of dead ones like this. But if they're all small, I can probably just weasel them out, and then the next two may fuse together next year. Like, I may not need to replace this one because that gap is small enough that it could easily be filled by the next two trees over. I'm gonna go around to the other side over here, and we'll see if we can find a little bit of root fusion. And then we need to look at the top too, because that's something that I read that's kind of important. If you let all of these fuse at the top and let it go too long, the top will end up being thicker than the portions below it, and you'll have some reverse taper. So since we're building this tree, we might as well have it just right? Okay. I've rotated this way just a little bit. I do remember when I made this, I did think it would be cool to have a hollow, so I left this gap here. And we've got some good growth out of these 3 or 4 here together, or 5 or 6, I can't tell. So let's see if maybe the roots have begun to fuse. There's a popped, what you call it? Let's see. Got an awful lot of feeder roots, which is exactly what we wanted. Remember, this is planted on a board, and the middle of the board is hollow so that I can thread graft branches later. But it's good. Oh, actually, some ants here. That may explain some of the issues with the dead trees. If the ants were all the way up under this tree, like it looks like they may have been. Frustrating. Here, almost all of them died. I'm sure my hand is in the way. And in the way. Excuse me. But where we do have growth, we have good growth. Here, these have begun to fuse, and this will be a nice Nabari. So I'm gonna pick up the camera and walk around and look a little bit and see if we can get see a few areas where hopefully we have some significant fusion. As it appears, it's going to be another couple of years before it's really where it really starts coming together, but that's fine, we got time. Here, zoom in, get it to focus. Here and here, we have very significant fusion with this, and I would not be surprised if this guy is one of those really big ones down at the bottom that really just took off. But it's fused. I'm having trouble focusing, I apologize. But it's fused very well right here with all the trees around it. Again, on this side, another one that was very strong growing. You can see where the trash ties were. Get you in there. Goodness. See, it's already eaten them. And those knobs will become a little less pronounced as the rest of the tree fuses, so not something to really worry about. But you can see above it, up here, pretty much where you can see green twist ties is where there was a lack of growth. Like here, this looks exactly like it did. This looks exactly like it did whenever I first bounded. These trees, they died. Almost all of them immediately. There may be one or two that are alive. Like I believe that one's probably okay. But you can see all the other ones are obviously dead. So those will have to be replaced. The tree still has its form. You can see it very generally, which is good. And that should solidify over the next couple of years. But the top is something I'll have to address this spring. Let me zoom you out just a little, get these leaves out of the way. You can see that the ones that really grew well, that were bound at the top, they have fused completely, and it's already effectively healed over. But come around to the back side, the ones from the bottom that did not make it are dead up here. So you can see the ones that are alive, the ones that started being bound by the wire up here. But what I'm gonna have to do in the spring is cut these larger ones. I'm gonna have to chop them, because if I do not, then that bulge there will be larger than the section immediately below it, and it will look knobby and a little unnatural, or it won't look as good. So that's what we'll do there. Okay, so things I've learned. I did research this pretty well before I did it. It's only in a couple books. Things that I need to do better next year, I need to do better in future projects. I do need to do a better job of watering, I believe. This may just be because it's cooler. I haven't watered it in a little while, but this soil is very dry. It's probably okay, because there are a lot of, like when I do this, there are feeder roots right there. So that tells me that the soil wasn't too dry. But I need to do a better job of probably opening this up somehow. There's a cocoon. Opening this up so that the smaller ones can get sunlight, because what probably happened with several of these, you kind of had to mix and match the sizes, to, you know, some longer ones for the top, and then you had some holes you filled in with some small ones. The small ones probably got shaded out really quickly and then couldn't you know, couldn't get any sunlight and died. And now some of them probably would have died anyway. Not every seedling survives in general, so, but that's probably a factor we should consider. And then on this side, where I had about 10 that are dead in a row, the only thing that I can think of is this side was eroded. I'm not sure, I think it rained a lot, and we had, I had to replace the soil in a hurry, so maybe those roots dried out too much since they're all on this one side. That would make sense. But what I'm gonna have to do in the spring, I'm gonna dig it up because I was going to do just general root work anyway, and I was already planning on doing this, but I'm going to have to order a fair amount of seedlings, and I'm gonna have to go through here, cut these out, and then rewire new ones onto the frame, which is going to be a project. When I did this in the spring, it was, I don't know if I said in the video, but it took me 2 or 3 days of doing it to get them all on there. It's tedious. So that will be a project for sure. I probably also need to do a better job of backfilling into the middle. I didn't want roots growing back that way, so I didn't worry about it too much, but we may need to do a better job of burying back under there just to make sure that these trees do stay alive. Overall, I'm mixed with it. I was hoping that there would be more fusion going on, and I was hoping that less seedlings would have died. But there are some very promising areas where I think we've got a few, you know, really strong growers on each side, and I think that those will make up, pick up the slack for a lot of these that are smaller, not growing as well. Because I mean, if you've got 2 that are alive and one is small and one's large, as long as they connect and fuse, it doesn't really matter how they individually grow. It matters how they grow as an aggregate. So as long as we've got these strong growers in here, I think they will definitely help make up a difference. I think that's gonna be it. I'm gonna water this in after the video because the soil is too dry, but I really have some exciting stuff, like really exciting stuff that I'll probably announce in the next month or 2. I think you guys will be really interested to see it. And then I've also got to make this growing bed over here, and I've got some design ideas. I'm not sure if I want to just make a huge growing bed or if I want to partition it off, but this will open up my space a whole lot more for my trees. So I'll leave you with a little walkthrough now that the leaves are dropping in my other garden, and you can kind of see how much growth we got this year. And I hope you guys have a good holidays if I don't see you before Christmas. Until next time.